Now by Ben Harris-Quinney, who is the chairman of the Group, which is the oldest Conservative think tank. You opposed last year's measures. What do you think about what's going to happen now?
Well, I think actually when we opposed the measures last year, they were going to affect everyone that was taking the PIP pretty much. This time, it seems that the government's emergency legislation is going to attack the most vulnerable people that are taking the PIP. And we feel that that's just wrong. And I think there's a strong feeling building in Parliament towards that as well.
Now, people have talked about the government wanting parity between mental health, people with mental health issues and physical health issues, but others are saying that the PIP payments weren't designed for that. They almost made that distinction almost on purpose. Isn't the remit now going to be so broad that the legislation is not doing what it was intended to do in the first place?
Well, obviously, there needs to be some method of assessing who is deserving of benefits and who isn't. But we've got to remember that mental health issues are now the biggest cause of death for men under the age of 35. Almost 30% of people in this country suffer from some form of mental health issues. So attacking people on benefits with mental health issues, and not just doing that in terms of legislation, but also talking in terms of, people at home taking pills, they aren't actually people that are disabled. Well, actually they are, and they're suffering just as much as other forms of disability. And it's quite extraordinary that the government has spent so much time investing in a mental health strategy where they've talked about taking mental health as seriously as other forms of illness and other forms of health, and they've come out with this policy and with these sorts of statements that reverse all the good work that they've been doing over the past year.
What do you think it does in terms of the image of the Conservative Party? Does that concern you, and do you think that lots of Tory MPs agree with you?
Well, it does concern me. I think what you've seen in the last 6 years with the Conservative Party, Theresa May famously coined the phrase the nasty party at the Conservative Party conference. There's been a lot of window dressing in the Conservative Party, policies like same-sex marriage, international aid, gender-neutral passports. But the role of a Conservative government, indeed any government, is to protect and seek prosperity for British citizens. And the last place you should start looking to make cuts is the most vulnerable among those citizens. And that's what we are seeing here. And I think Tory backbench MPs, both on the left and crucially on the right of the party, see a fundamental unfairness in this legislation.
There is, though, of course, the question of money. What the courts have done is interpreted the law as it stands. It will mean £3.7 billion, almost £4 billion over the next few years. That's money that does have to come from somewhere.
Well, it does, but then you look at the fact that we're spending $13 billion on international aid. We're spending $4 billion approximately on NHS provision for foreigners. And I think the Conservative point of view, which may differ from the Labour Party point of view, which is always saying, well, we've got to spend more money on everything. The Conservative point of view is absolutely, we have a 1.7 trillion debt in this country. We have a deficit that is continuing on that's at about 50 billion. So that absolutely needs to be taken very seriously front and centre. But you don't start making cuts with the most vulnerable, you start making cuts with the least vulnerable.
Thank you very much indeed. So that's one view from the Conservative Party there. Now the House of Lords and the House of Commons will get a chance to vote on this in the next couple of weeks or so. We'll have to see how far they're prepared to go and whether a rebellion on this starts to build.